Dr. Debbie Rosen is the founder and president of Truvidity Labs, a premium nutritional supplement company that helps people optimize their health, wellness, and performance. She has a PhD in performance psychology with published research on dietary behaviors and obesity, and is a certified fitness nutrition specialist and a personal trainer. Debbie was first on stage as a natural bodybuilder in 1993 and was a nationally ranked figure competitor in the NPC in 2014 and competed in 2017 in the Arnold Sports Festival.
So when I meditate, people might say that they're, demigods to pray to. I'm not sure what people would call it, but they are my images of Buddha in different forms that remind me of certain things that I need to channel. And so one of them is a very, very large, just a Buddha head. So it's not the body and, in any mudra or anything like that. It's just the big head that's as big as some of the other figures. And it's to remind me that my headspace is something that is of value to people and to share it with others. So
I love that.
I'm very big in that when I kind of focus on that one.
I have in my car, it's a little mini Buddha. It's about this big and he's
Yeah.
silver and he is in the dash of my car. That I was shopping with Roxy one day and they were selling these little mini Buddhas, and it's the Buddha of wisdom to remind me that every moment is an opportunity for wisdom.
That's so
So
true.
it is. So welcome, Debbie Rosen, Dr. Debbie Rosen, to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I am just going to jump right in to talking with you about, first of all, we can start with your history in fitness and bodybuilding, and then how it led to the creation of Truvidity Labs. And then we can talk about each product. I'm so excited that you're
Sure.
here. So
Yeah.
tell me how this all came about.
So my history in bodybuilding, gosh, this actually goes back over 30 years ago. Listen, when I was in high school, I was always involved in sports. I wouldn't call myself an athlete per se, but I was always involved in sports. I did competitive cheer. I played soccer. I played lacrosse. I was always active, and I got suckered into the weight room in high school, of all things, and just fell in love with the idea of pushing my body to be stronger. And met someone that I dated for a short period of time as a very young teenager who was a competitive bodybuilder as a teen. And I got hooked immediately. Between the constant achievement of goals and seeing what you can do when you just kind of put all of your energy into something that you believe in that actually could have a potential health benefit. And we can maybe throw around the comments around that of how unhealthy bodybuilding can be if you allow it to be
Yeah,
unhealthy.
right.
I just fell in love with it. And so I did my first natural bodybuilding show with a conference that no longer exists. It's called the ANPPC. It was the All Natural Power and Physique Conference back in 1993, which sounds like it was so long ago. It was over now 30 years ago. And then did another one in 1994, then took a little hiatus to have some kids and focus on career and things like that. And in my 39th year of life before I turned 40, I decided to get back into it, and decided that, bodybuilding really wasn't something I wanted to get back into from a size and leanness standpoint. And I got into figure and did a bunch of NPC figure shows. And in 2014 was nationally ranked and I actually took the overall at the Garden State championships in figure, placed third at NPC Universe, which is a pretty big show in figure, and then did the Arnold Sports Festival in 2017. So it's been part of my life for a really long time, and I think it can have some super health benefits. It could also be used really detrimentally so, but I love it, and it's something that I really just believe in. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's very true that there is there are plenty of people that I remember my very first show that I was kind of confused because I was like listening to some of these individuals. I'm like, what is going on here? These women that their voices were like really low. And I asked my coach, I'm like, do PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, make your voice change? And my coach was like, yes. And so I learned a lot there. And I'm not dissing on anybody who chooses to use performance enhancing drugs. I
Yeah,
actually have not tapped into any of that in my training thus far. And that said, it's a thing in bodybuilding. The
yeah,
other side to it is there's a lot of coaches out there who have their athletes do some pretty extreme things. Like my coaches at Bare Aesthetics are registered dietitians, and my direct coach is a registered nurse. And it's very important for them to make sure the athletes are healthy, and because it's a sport, it's a hobby. Like it is I'm a pro at this point, and it's still I don't consider it my full, like it doesn't encompass my life that I want to destroy my health for a
yeah,
trophy. So anyhow, I love that. And I love what you said about the goal setting, because it really is. A lot of people that are not within the industry think that bodybuilding is so much just about the physique. And yes, it is. It's also about what it takes to get there. And it takes a huge amount of mindset and discipline. And I love the person that I have become and am becoming, because as a result of the sport and the people that I've encountered within
yeah.
the sport. So thanks for
Yeah, and I
mentioning
think,
that.
I mean, I think it's also important to mention for the audience too is, I think when people think about bodybuilding, what they imagine is, the images of these ginormous people, usually mostly men, who have these kind of, I mean, just superhuman size physiques that are super, super lean, shredded. And that is a very, very small representation of what the world of bodybuilding really is. I mean, the world of bodybuilding, if you think about what the term says, it's building your body. And that can actually be used in a very healthy way to build structure and function that carries you into your later years of life, because as you know, you lose muscle mass as you age. So building sufficient muscle mass while you're in those years of ability is really very important, because it's what holds you as you age. I think it also the we call it the stage performance side of it, the beauty pageant side of it. I struggle with calling bodybuilding a sport. I think what you do as a fitness pro is definitely a sport. There's an athletic component to it. I think a lot of bodybuilding, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, is much a beauty pageant of the physique. How you get there is quite a journey. And I think what most people don't understand is the commitment to fine tuning parts of the body so that it is symmetrical, so that it is built with the
Mm-hmm.
right amount of density, so that it looks full as you lean down and get rid of all of the body fat is quite frankly a science experiment.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but what I
It's like
love
mad
about it,
science.
it really is. It really is. And it's not about fulfilling an ego of how good can I look. If you do it properly, it's how well can I make my body perform under extreme pressure. And I will tell you that for me, the reason why I got back into it many years later was actually from a change in life where I was in an unhealthy relationship where I really lost myself. And I found that by pulling all of my threads that were kind of spread out into the world back to myself and redefining again who I wanted to be, going to the gym and lifting weights was really empowering. And it is a bit I don't know, people may say it sounds a little hokey, but to physically become strong again, physically in a gym, to lift heavy weights on my own, all by myself, 100% focused on me. But then it translates into this spiritual side of feeling strong that I think a lot of people could benefit from. Whether you're
Oh
in a
yeah.
tough, career situation in life or going through a tough time of, kind of that midlife crisis of, what does aging look like for me? I think it can be really empowering for people that it is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I actually got into bodybuilding as a sport, as a pursuit when COVID happened. I was
Mhm.
like, not gonna end up on the couch feeling like I had missed out on whatever. I wanted to have a direction. And excuse me, actually this past season, I was going through a lot of difficult stuff with my daughter, with my family, and the gym was my lifeline to keep me. it was one thing I could control in a world that felt really out of control.
Mhm.
So to piggyback on what you're saying, that it's a place where you can actually control your effort. You can control how much you lift. You can control what's happening. You can, in the sport, I could kind of control what my eating at that time. It just gave me a like a life raft, if you will.
Yeah,
So definitely, and also side benefit, carrying the groceries in from the car is like a cinch nowadays. So there's practical benefits to that
for sure.
that that I just feel stronger overall. And also that I can do hard things. And when I do hard things in the gym, I know that I can handle hard things outside of the gym. And there's a real power to that,
Yep.
that you can make it through challenges, whether it be school or your job or your family or even health things. You know,
Hmm.
you can strive to find that level of control there.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now let's talk about how you decided that you would create this brand of Truvidity Labs.
Oh gosh. So, over the last 15 years or so, I have done some wellness coaching, fitness coaching, nutritional coaching, call it what you will. Just trying to help people, guide them along the path of making good lifestyle choices that lead to health. And over the years, I've always just kind of gone out to, the web and gone, all right, so as we build a nutritional plan, there are good supplements out there, and supplements are used to supplement bigger picture, right? So I don't like to replace food with supplements. I like to use them to add benefit. And so as I would recommend supplements, I tell people, go on Amazon and order this, and then you got to add this to it because it doesn't have that. And then sometime after a while, a month or two, I go, oh, you know what? Actually, I won't recommend that one anymore because I don't like where they're getting that ingredient from, or it's really not the right ingredient, but it's otherwise a good, like I just got frustrated with trying to piece together the most common supplements that everybody asked about. And, listen, everybody needs to sleep really well. People need to be well hydrated. They need to have sufficient protein to build good muscle tissue so that you can fight off that aging process of muscle loss. And then, good immunity as you're in a calorie deficit, because most of the people that I was helping would either want to lose weight or get into better shape. And so when you are in a calorie deficit, you tend to kind of create some lower immunity in the body. And so I found that I was often recommending the same kinds of products. And earlier this year, so I finished my doctorate earlier this year, and I really got heavy into wellness coaching. And here I am again, starting to recommend the same kinds of products for people. And I said, I think there's an opportunity for me to design my own that I have been recommending in other brands for the last 5 or 10 years, that I really don't know what's going in those products. And I'm piecing together fragments of ingredients to make them holistic, and decided to put my money, my time, and my resources into working with a chemist, with the formulas that I was piecing together with all these other products, and come up with my own line.
And saying it like that makes it sound like, oh, let's just create a product line with a chemist. I'm sure that is vastly
Understated.
understand the
Yeah,
understatement
I
of
mean,
century.
so I'll give you a little insight into how it works. So obviously, I had some idea of the products that I wanted to bring out to the public as my first line, if you will. And there are four, and we'll talk about them in just a minute. But so I said, all right, I know that these are the four products are the most common things I'm recommending to everyday people for everyday health, is really kind of what was in the back of my mind. I did not go after the bodybuilding work, the bodybuilding market, if you will, of, because that's a very unique set of products. I didn't do endurance athletes per se. I kind of just did everyday products for everyday people. And so I decided that these four supplements. And so I went down the list of ingredients that I was recommending based on piecing together products from around, the industry, and reached out to a company that I knew from the past. We could talk about why I chose the one that I did to actually manufacture the products, and gave them my list of ingredients. And their chemist and I worked together to say, okay, actually, this ingredient is even better if you use it in this compounded form when you combine it with these things. So it was actually a really good educational process for me, even through it, because I thought I knew. I'm always in education mode. I'm always trying to learn more, learn from everyone. And so we tweaked a few of the ingredients, formulated them into test products, and then sent them out to a group of people to test out for me. It was for the powders to check them for consistency, texture, flavor, mixability, all kinds of things like that, and then efficacy. Did they actually achieve what we wanted them to achieve? And I'm not going to claim that I did clinical trials, because as a researcher, I know what that really means. But I did do some, so for example, some folks, I had them check their glucose levels after they did the electrolyte powders to see if they actually created any kind of a sugar spike. And then obviously the more common things about taste, texture, mixability, things like that, that was just consumer feedback. And then on the pill products, same thing. I kind of wanted to check to see, did it have good efficacy? Didn't do clinical trials, but in a sleep product, did you actually feel like over the course of a week, you got more often better sleep than you did without the product? And so once we did that, then you go into packaging, then you go into branding and labeling. And then, do people want small bottles, big bottles? There was an interesting thing about how much space there is in empty and how people perceive that. It's a process that I really didn't prepare myself for, nor did I think there was that much that went into it. But lo and behold, July 1st, had my first shipment of the products with the label of Truvidity Labs on it. And then you go into even more mass market consumer feedback. So now as I'm shipping a few hundred of these things every couple of weeks, I get feedback of, hey, my container came crushed. I got to do different shipping materials. It's been, as you can tell, the enthusiasm in my voice. It's been so exciting, but even for a business executive veteran like me, it's been an interesting process that I didn't really know how much went into it.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I'm super impressed with how you've done this. And one thing that was really attractive to me in partnering with Debbie and Truvidity is that I know Debbie. Debbie and I used to work a little bit together when Debbie was focused a little bit more on in the mortgage world because her husband is in mortgage, and when I was working in real estate. And so I'm a very loyal brand partner because I had been partnering with another individual who was putting out great products for years and years, and he decided to get out of the supplement biz. And so I was kind of like looking around, and I'm sure you guys out there have walked into a supplement store and looked around, and there's like 900 different options, and you just don't really necessarily know, aside from what the owner of that supplement store is telling you, what's garbage and what is quality. And I'm not really that big on researching stuff. I just like to work with people that I trust, and I trust Debbie. I know her. I know that after speaking with her, especially, that was the reason behind creating this company, is to put quality products out there that can actually be of benefit and not just make money off people. And as Debbie has just stated, it's a lot easier said than done to be like, oh, I'm going to make money on creating supplements. So I knew that there was a purpose, a good, solid, morally based purpose behind these products. And also that it's important to me that my protein powder not taste like garbage. Also, I want it to mix well with water, because I've tried products in the past that didn't taste good just with water. I had to doctor them all up and put them in the blender and all the things. And this protein powder that we'll talk about in a second, TrueBuild, is one of those products that I put in my shaker, shake it up. It tastes great. My daughter loves it. We put it in pancakes in the morning, oatmeal in the morning. We drink shakes all the time. So having a trust in business, know, like, and trust is
Yeah.
always the key in business. So I was happy to partner up with Debbie and help her spread this. And I also love that they're formulated for everyone, like not just bodybuilding. Just because I'm in bodybuilding doesn't mean that everybody. One thing that I've noticed about myself that I learned when I got into bodybuilding, but everybody else that I've spoken to in terms of wanting to lose weight, tone up, get in shape, all those things. Most people don't get enough protein. And that's why a supplement of a protein is important, especially if you're trying to change body composition, because you can eat food and it's important to eat good quality food. And sometimes you need that extra supplement to your diet. So that's a good segue, I think, to talk about the first product, which is TrueBuild. Got my products here for you guys. So this one is probably the most common thing that people would purchase and add to their nutrition regimen. So let's talk about TrueBuild, because I know one of the things that I really love about it is I've got Crohn's disease, and having a probiotic within that product is really awesome for me. So
Yeah.
tell us about TrueBuild and what's going
Yeah.
on there.
So the genesis of TrueBuild came about, as you mentioned, Rachel. I think that just about everyone could use a protein supplement in their everyday life. The average person in America does not get even half the protein that they need. And there's different opinions about how much protein people need. So if we go on the USDA guidelines, I think that the protein requirements for the average person is on the low side. The problem that I'm just going to challenge that a little bit to say, I don't want to feel like the average American. The average American today is actually not a very healthy human being, right? We all have, and I'm going to include myself in this we, even though I'm not, but we as Americans as a whole society have high blood pressure. We have high cholesterol. And we could talk some other time about why high cholesterol is not necessarily always a bad thing, because cholesterol is very important for us. But we have high blood pressure, we have high cholesterol, we have diabetes, we've got a withering away physical function. And so when people say, well, the average American should have 50 grams of protein a day, I go, well, I don't want to feel like the average American. I don't want to have the health of the average American, and I don't want to have the physique of the average American adult. So I'm going to challenge the guidelines and say that the average American that wants to look and feel and function really, really well and age well really needs about 100 to 150 grams of protein a day. And
I
it's
was going to
really,
say 50 is like,
yeah, it's 50, they say between 50 and 80 grams of protein a day is the average recommendation for men and women. And I just
interesting.
shake my head and I go, well, that's why we all have diabetes and high blood pressure and obesity.
Yeah.
So, because when we're not eating protein, what we're eating then is, usually mostly starches and sugars. Well, that again, conversation for another time. So, so if we say that we want to get about 100 to 150 grams of protein on average for people, that's a lot of chicken. And that's a lot of fish. And I mean, Rachel, you've had to
I
do a
will
lot of
chime
things.
in and say I eat a ridiculous amount of chicken, and it's still not enough to get me what I need. And I at least have one protein shake per day.
Yeah. So obviously that was the first thing that I thought of, is that the everyday person needs good, high quality protein to get into their body. So there's a couple different ways you can get protein powder. You can do, whey, which is a milk-based protein. You could do egg, you can do plant, you can do, there's a lot of different ways to get protein. I went with whey isolate for a few different reasons. Number one, it is one of the most bioavailable proteins, meaning when you put it into your body, it immediately goes to the right places to perform some sort of good benefit for the body. It gets absorbed quickly, it goes right into the cells, and it creates muscle protein synthesis, which is a really fancy word for saying builds muscle tissue. And when we say it also builds tissues, so your skin, your hair, your nails, your joint tissues, and all the connective tissues like your tendons and your ligaments, protein does all of that. So it's not just about bodybuilding, muscle growth, muscle density. It's for all of those things. A common question I get is, why didn't you do collagen? Because isn't collagen what you need for hair, skin, and nails? Wrong answer. Protein builds hair, skin, and nails. Doesn't matter what kind. So that's a misunderstanding. So I did whey isolate. What whey isolate means is you take milk and you isolate out. There's really three things in milk. There's fat, there's sugar, and there's protein. And so the sugar is the lactose. So people who are lactose intolerant, that's what you actually remove, is the lactose, or you actually put an enzyme in there to break it down. So we remove the milk sugar, and now we're left with milk protein and milk fat. And then you defat it, or you remove the milk fat. So now what you're left with is the milk protein. And there's two different kinds of milk protein. There's casein and there's whey. Casein is a very slow digested protein. It's a little bit less bioavailable, and it takes your body a little longer to absorb it. Whey, when it's isolated down, is a very fast absorbing, very fast digested protein and made available very quickly for all of those tissues to be built. So that's why I chose the whey isolate. I added digestive enzymes and probiotics to it for two reasons. Number one is they just help the digestion of the protein. So some people will say they get protein belly when they drink protein shakes. What it basically means is when you put that protein into the gut, it kind of just creates a little bit of a fermented process that it kind of creates a little air pocket in the belly. So with the digestive enzymes, it's got the digestive enzymes for protein, carbs, and fats in it added. It helps digest the protein, but also because most people need digestive enzymes for their overall health. So it's in there. And it's got probiotics for the same reason. Probiotics are really important to put into the belly so that it helps with overall health. There's a huge body of research that shows that gut health and mind health are directly connected. Depression, anxiety, sleep, and all that good stuff. And the truth of the matter is, I struggle with getting my husband to remember to take his probiotics every single day, but he will never, ever forget his protein shake. So if I just put that stuff right in there, I'm sure represents a lot of Americans. If I just put it right in there, I know they're getting their protein, their probiotics, and the digestive enzymes every single day if they just drink or use 1 scoop of protein powder every day. So that's why it's in there.
I love it. And I am guilty too. So again, with my Crohn's disease, I should be taking a probiotic. So I got really excited when Debbie mentioned this. And the other side that I'm really glad that you broke down how the whey is processed, because I cannot do dairy.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that in experimenting with other products that the plant-based protein powders kind of mess with my stomach a little bit more than the whey products. So now I got a good explanation. So thanks for
Yeah.
that.
And I think, and the other thing too that people need to realize is that people will ask me, well, I thought we're not supposed to have dairy, so health guidelines tell us to avoid dairy. So I'll clarify. So dairy in and of itself is not a bad thing. The guidelines say that fermented low fat dairy is actually recommended for overall health. Obviously, if you have an intolerance to dairy, that's a different story. Again, most intolerances are to the lactose, which this does not have. If you have a true milk allergy, you should know if it's a lactose or if it's a whey or casein out, because some people are allergic to different things. But then this is a low fat, and technically it's a fermented dairy because it has the probiotics. When you add probiotics to dairy, it creates a fermentation process. The product itself is not fermented, but it has both ingredients, so it ferments inside of your body. So you actually get that benefit.
Fascinating. So cool. I love that you know all this sciencey stuff. Let's see. Let's shift to the hydration product, which is
Yeah.
TrueSplash.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love truth be told, I'll drink water like peak week on its own because I'm supposed to drink water on its own. Aside from that, I always like to have a little something in my water just to give me flavor. So knowing that this is also good for hydration and there's also not a bunch of added sugar and also weird chemicals, which you can explain what's in here. I do love this product. And I admittedly, when you are properly hydrating, you can feel it. Like I can tell that I'm more hydrated.
Mhm.
Ask me how, I don't know, but tell us about this
Yeah.
product and what the benefits of proper hydration are.
Yeah. All right. So I think that the first where we should start is what are electrolytes? Because I think in the general public's mind, electrolytes is Gatorade. And so let's just mention kind of like the genesis of Gatorade, because it actually was developed for a good purpose, but it has lost it in the Gen Pop. So Gatorade was developed, most people know, by the University of Florida. That's why it's called Gatorade, because it's the Gators. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, so it was developed by actually, I think it was developed by a student population. And it was to resolve the fact that their student athletes, so the athletes out on the field, were out there for 5, 6, 7 hours in the blazing summer heat in summer session for football camp, is my best knowledge of how this happened. And they said they were getting very badly dehydrated. They were getting cramps. They weren't performing well. And so they said, well, what do you do if you know anything about endurance athletes? What you need is continuous feeds of salt, because you lose salt. And when you don't have salt, your muscles don't contract properly. Okay, so if you lose too much salt, your muscles don't contract properly. You actually get a little bit of a speeded heart rate and little palpitations, which no athlete wants. And because they're out there for 8 hours without having access to any kind of refeeding, they needed sugar. They need glucose. Again, endurance athletes, as you're running a marathon, you need goos or chews to replace the salt and the sugar that you lose as you're sweating. Very effective for athletes who are stuck out in a summer football field for 8 hours with no access to food or salt. And all they were doing is giving them water. So you put sugar and salt in water and you rehydrate. The average American person is not a student athlete on a football field in Florida. And so unfortunately, we give Gatorade to our kids as a sports drink. It is literally a bolus of sugar, glucose, and salt with a hint of potassium to call it an electrolyte sports drink. And it is not being used for its intended purpose. So what do electrolytes do? I think it's really important. So not to bash on Gatorade because it does have function, but it's not meant to be used the way it's being used. Gatorade, Powerade, all of it. What electrolytes do is this, and this is the easiest way I can explain it. If you fill up a bathtub with water and you stand in the bathtub, and then you take a toaster and plug it in and throw it into the bathtub, what's going to happen?
Ugh, something not good from the
You get
movies.
electrocuted. Of course, you get electrocuted. And the follow-up question is, do you know why you get electrocuted? And the answer is usually because the water conducts electricity. We all know water conducts electricity. That's why you don't go outside in the rain in an electric storm. It's actually wrong. The water doesn't conduct electricity at all. In fact, if you filled your bathtub with distilled water, nothing would happen. Well, don't please.
Please do not.
So do not try this at home. Trust the PhD researcher over here because I do science experiments on everything.
Toasters do not belong in bathtubs.
Toasters and humans do not belong in bathtubs. But I will tell you that from a science experiment standpoint, if you fill a bathtub with distilled water and stand in it and throw an electrical item in that's plugged in, nothing will happen because it's not the water that conducts the electricity. It's the ions in the water, the electrically charged minerals in the water that conduct the electricity. And so when you remove the minerals from the water, when you distill it, there's nothing to conduct the electricity. So if we use that analogy, if our body is 60% water and our brain is just a giant toaster, okay, that's plugged in, and our brain is sending electrical impulses to all of our organs, to our skeletal muscle to move, around to the rest of our brain to conduct, cognitive function and things like that. If our body is 60% water and we don't have proper ions or minerals in our body, in our water, to conduct the electrical impulses from our brain to our heart, to our lungs, to our kidneys, to our biceps, to our diaphragm to breathe properly, to our heart muscle to contract properly, it's actually not going to conduct those electrical impulses properly. So by just drinking a ton of water that has trace minerals, really doesn't do much for us at all. In fact, it actually makes the situation worse because when you put pure water into your body and your body has this natural tendency, it's a biomechanical process, that it actually will reduce water based on or hold on to water based on your mineral content. So if your sodium levels are low and you put water into your body goes, oh, I don't need that water, flush it out. So if you don't have proper mineral content, and we'll talk about which ones, there's 4 of them, your brain can't conduct electrical impulses to the rest of your body, just like the toaster and the water in the bathtub. And your body's going to flush out any extra water that you put into it because it doesn't need it to maintain homeostasis, to maintain balance. So the 4 minerals that do that in the human body are sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Okay, and then there's chloride too, which is a compound that you blend with everything. So the product that you're talking about, TrueSplash, has 4,000 of those milligrams. And if anybody wants to go out there and compare it to some of the other products out there, you'll see why it's therapeutically dosed. It has actually got a ton at the right ratio of those minerals to do all the things that I just mentioned. And most specifically, I think the ones that I want to call out to you. So magnesium is a unique one because magnesium, depending on what you compound it with, will do different things in the body. If it has a compound with oxygen or with different ones. I'm not going to get into the science of it, but if it compounds it with different things, it carries it to a different cell in the body. That's just how the body works. So if you compound it with the wrong thing, it's actually going to go right to the belly. It's just going to make it poop. Okay. If you compound it with malic acid and tauric acid, which is what magnesium malate and taurate are, it targets the skeletal muscle and the nervous system, which is why I put magnesium malate and taurate in it, because then it actually will help with the nerve conduction and the muscle contraction. And then the other one that's really specific is sodium. You can combine sodium with chloride as a compound, and that should sound familiar. Sodium chloride is table salt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's products out there like Element, which is a really good product. It's got loads and loads of sodium in it, but it's bound 100% with chloride. So it's got 1,000 milligrams of table salt in it. It's really salty. It's like licking your own sweat. So what I did was I broke it apart and I put sodium with citrate and chloride as two separate compounds that are equally absorbed, but it cuts down on the taste of the salt while still giving you the therapeutic dose of the sodium. And then again, just to round it out, the potassium and the calcium are actually put in there at the right ratios so that it targets all the right organs, tissues, so you get true hydration and encourages your body to hold on to the water that you drink.
Heck yeah. Now, I will give you a specific example of I used this product last weekend. I ran a half marathon. Now, full disclosure, I was not trained up well enough for this event because it was 2 weeks after my show season. And during peak weeks for both of those shows, I'm not allowed to run. I can only walk. So I was a little limited on the training I did. So I trained for like 2 weeks up to this event. And the longest run I did up to the half marathon, which is 13.1, was 10 miles. And so I was a little concerned about how my body would respond. So the morning of the race, I drove over a little bit early. I sat in my car and meditated and did some breath work. And I purposefully drank a lot of water with TrueSplash in it. I was assuming and like discussing with a running coach the night before when I picked up my bib, he was like, "Oh, you'll be good. Just drink alternating water and Gatorade on the race." So I was kind of expecting that if I needed it, there would be water and Gatorade at the stations. There was not
Wow.
Gatorade. There was only water. And I know they have in the past had it. There wasn't any. So I was really pleased that I had the foresight to pre-hydrate with TrueSplash so that I wouldn't encounter any muscle cramps. I tend to get cramps in my calf muscles when I run. And I will say, I was watching people. So I kept some juice in the tank up until mile 10. The last 3 miles, I was so excited because I had a lot of juice left in the tank. And I was watching people stumbling off to the side of the road, getting muscle cramps. I could tell they were cramping. I could see one girl's leg cramping. I could see the muscle like touch. I had zero cramps. I had
Wow.
zero hydration problems. Mid race, I ate a Rice Krispie treat because that's what I had practiced. And I took sips of water, and my last mile was my fastest mile, and I sprinted across the finish line, and I felt great all day. So it's actually a true testament that
That's
even
great.
pre-hydrating with this product really helped me. I am absolutely convinced that it helped get me across that
Yeah.
finish line in one piece.
That's so awesome. And you know, and actually also I'll touch on this just because you brought it up. Because people have asked me about so the sodium content, aren't we supposed to lower our salt? And again, we can do a whole other podcast about the value of salt and how important it is in the human body for cardiac function and maintaining hydration and things like that. But so True Splash is not designed to be therapeutic for endurance athletes. It's not designed so it's kind of like the way I said I didn't design the protein powder for bodybuilders, right? I didn't put
Right.
creatine in it or things like that. I designed it for everyday products for everyday people. So the therapeutic dosing of those four minerals in it are meant to be for everyday hydration for everyone from children to older adults. Now the dosing may be a little bit different for those populations. You know, it's kind of like a bell curve, but you know, the everyday person can easily just do a scoop or two of the True Splash mixed in water a day. Kids about half a scoop depending on their age, and older adults as well. But if you're an endurance athlete, all you need to do is just up your dosage based on your, you know, your distance or you know what you're training for, and then probably add a little extra salt, and then you know dose out your sugar because it has stevia. It is not made with any kind of sweetener at all. So what I tend to do is I'm a minimally effective dose theorist, meaning you put the least amount in there to get the therapeutic effects because you can always add stuff to it. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
as an endurance athlete, if you're going to use True Splash as your hydration, add a little extra salt, add in some of that sugar so that you get that benefit that you need throughout your run. What I can't do is create a product and then take it out for the other populations. Right.
Yeah.
So I love that you pointed that out because it's really effective to prevent the cramps and to kind of give you that pre-dosing. If you do want to use it as your race drink, you just do need to add some extra salt and some of the glucose into it, either through goos or through just putting sugar into your packets.
Yeah. And I also love there was a graphic that Debbie posted on Instagram recently about the choice between Gatorade. Again, not downing Gatorade because it has
Nope.
its place, but if
Right.
you've got a kid that is playing soccer for an hour, they don't necessarily need Gatorade. They
Correct.
do need electrolytes. So I really like the idea that this is a kind of a better choice because of the lower sugar content,
Yep.
because the kids out there need the electrolytes more than they necessarily need the sugar if it's like an hour or even 2 hour practice.
Right.
Like they don't need the sugar. And if you're
Yeah.
trying to control the sugar for ADHD and all those things out there where sugars tends to exacerbate some of those conditions, it's a great alternative.
Agreed. And I think, just to kind of wrap up on that point for kids, parents don't realize that most of the average sports drinks that you buy your kids have as much sugar as 2 donuts. Now, there are parents out there that say, well, I don't care about my kids having a couple of donuts after they've run around for practice. And, we're not going to tap into that. But, um, you know, the thing that I focus more on is how many kids talk about, we call them growing pains, those cramps that kids get, their muscles just ache, their joints just ache. How many kids are just struggling to focus in school and stay concentrated on their schoolwork, and those moody teenagers that just, they're just all over the place. And I've had my share of them. And they eventually come out of it. But the bottom line is most of those things are actually from mineral deficiencies in kids. And I
Yeah.
think that parents just brush them off, no different than adults that say, well, I got high blood pressure. I'm in my 40s. I'm in my 50s. That's what happens. We need to stop accepting poor health as just an excuse from aging. It's from choices that we make, and we can address them. And so kids that have growing pains, muscle cramps, fatigue issues, focus issues, I encourage parents to look at their vitamin and mineral deficiencies before they just chalk it up to a moody teenager or a kid that's growing.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Amen to that, sister. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got 2 more products I want to get to.
Yeah.
You choose which one comes next, because there's definitely conversations that can happen with both TrueRest, which is a sleep product,
Yep.
and then TrueThermo, which I definitely want to bring this one up because I think there's a lot of, I'd like you to myth bust the fat
Yeah.
burner.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So why don't we do that one? We'll do that one.
Okay.
All right. So TrueThermo, here's the genesis. There it is right there. Ironically, it didn't start out as a fat burner in my world. In my notes, when I was developing the product, it's actually an energy and metabolism booster and immunity booster. When I went out to market with the test product for people to try, everybody called it the fat burner. And the truth of the matter is everybody wants a fat burner. I shouldn't say everybody, but people always ask about fat burners. Okay.
It's the
So
thing.
yeah, I will tell you that when people look at the label, they immediately look and they comment and they go, there's no caffeine in it. So it is most fat burners, they're what they call a mechanism of action. It's the chemistry behind why it achieves some sort of result. So the mechanism of action of most fat burners is that it spikes your heart rate or it increases your blood pressure. And by
Which I
doing
hate.
that, of course, when it does that, if it spikes up your heart rate, your heart is a muscle. The more your heart has to pump like this, whether it's because it has a harder contraction for blood pressure or faster because of a increased heart rate, it's going to use up calories. Okay. And by using up calories, it's going to create a calorie deficit, which then potentially puts your body into a calorie deficit that it looks for fat for energy. Okay, the downside of doing that is obviously the stress on the heart, and we don't need to harp on that, but it's the reason why I chose not to put any sort of stimulants at all. There's no theobromine, there's no caffeine, there's none of that stuff. And even the green tea extract, which people would say isn't tea caffeinated, is decaffeinated green tea extract. So I intentionally removed every source of stimulant from the product because that's not the mechanism of action I wanted my product to have. Okay, so that's the most common thing is out there. If you really honestly just want to take a fat burner, just drink an extra cup of coffee and pop an aspirin. It's really the simplest and easiest way to do it if you want to use that mechanism of action. I put a couple of ingredients in there that I really believe work. Clinical research says that it works, and I'll tell you what they are. So first of all, B12 is very well documented to support energy. It actually is a catalyst for metabolic functions within cells in the mitochondria. And so B12 is in there at a therapeutic dose to support all of the kind of cell metabolism and energy that you get from B12. The second thing that's in there is L-carnitine. It's an amino acid, and combined with EGCG, which is the kind of chemical that's in green tea leaves. It's the extract from green tea leaves. EGCG and L-carnitine are really very fascinating. One is a key that unlocks body fat from how it's kind of stored in your body. So body fat is fat is a cell, right? And it kind of, there's a key that unlocks it, that removes it from how it's connected to the body and stored that way. Then that body fat is kind of just sitting here, that cell. We need an Uber to take it and transport it into the cell to be put into the engine of the cell, the mitochondria, to actually be converted to ATP into energy. And so L-carnitine and green tea extract, the EGCG, do just that. They actually break the bond of how body fat is stored as energy in the body, in your love handles and wherever else you have body fat, and then kind of takes it and carries it into the cell so that it can be used as energy. And so what the reason why, and then green tea extract is also a very powerful antioxidant. And so it's another reason why I chose to put that ingredient over a few others that I could have included, because most people that take a body fat burner should be in a calorie deficit. When you're in a calorie deficit, oftentimes you remove calories from your diet, which means you remove nutrients from your body. And so when you do that, you could potentially putting yourself in an immunity deficit as well. So putting an antioxidant into the body to protect the cell walls and all those things like that are really important. So it's kind of a powerhouse product that it's not intended to spike your heart rate, give you the palpitations, make you sweat like a lot of the other body fat burners do, because that's how they work. What it does is it creates a decoupling of body fat from storage, transports it into the cell to be used as energy, and then the B12 acts as the catalyst, so that if you're in a calorie deficit, it will actually promote body fat to be used as energy, and then it'll also protect your immunity system with the antioxidants. It's a very unique product, but it works really well.
I love it. And you can imagine that there's a placebo effect of taking these kind of things, like just expecting that it's going to do something. But I definitely, since I have been utilizing Truvidity products, I definitely feel that I have more energy. I just have a better sense of health, as opposed to some of my past preps where I kind of just felt so depleted. And I love that, because I'll admit, back in the 90s, man, I tried every fat burner on the planet out there. And the thing about it is, you can't just take a fat burner and eat garbage, like eat fast, like just eat whatever you want and take a fat burner and expect that it'll work. I know there's somebody out there listening right now, and I call you out on it, but only because I've done it. Like, I just didn't care about what I was eating. I was exercising like a million hours of cardio and doing fat burners and having this heart rate through the roof, and then nothing was working. And then you get the skinny fat effect. So remember that this is a supplement, which is meant to supplement the healthy practices, which include eating right. If you are trying to change body composition, i.e. lose the fat, you've got to also make sure that your nutrition is in order, and then use this as a supplement to these practices. So awesome, awesome sauce. All right, let's move to the sleep thing, because sleep is part of your training. I have been terrible in the past with too many things going on and not getting good sleep. And then also, my hormones were kind of in a bad place after, just partially one part my age and one part the intensity of training that I've done in the last few years. And so I was pretty excited to get TrueRest in my world, because I'm not a good sleeper. My husband is a real good sleeper. He'll be like, good night, and snoring. I'm not a real good sleeper in general. And especially, just under the stress that we're all under in this world, you need good sleep. If you're an athlete, you absolutely need good sleep, because that's when actually the work that happens in the gym.
Magic happens when you sleep.
When you sleep, that's when you're actually building that muscle. So talk to us about this product and why sleep is crucial.
Yeah. So again, similar to TrueThermo, TrueRest originally wasn't a sleep aid. It was actually designed as what I call a rest and recovery aid, which maybe it's semantics in the wording, but sleep is where all of the magic happens of the body. So if you actually look at someone who is sleep deprived, sleep deprivation is a terrorist tactic, right? I mean, it's a torture tactic. Sleep deprivation will eventually erode the brain and the body to the point that it ceases to exist. So if we just kind of take it to the other extreme, if you say, well, if you can promote really good rest during the sleep hours, you can become superhuman. And so this product is actually, it's the one that I've worked really the hardest on, the longest on, even long before I decided to launch the business and promote my own line. I've been tweaking this formula for probably about 2 or 3 years and teasing it out with different people. So there's 6 ingredients in this product, and I'll explain again kind of the chemistry of why they work together so well. So first is going to be zinc and B6. And again, I won't really harp on that. There's a lot of really good research around why zinc and B6 are, are just good recovery products and promote a relaxation in the body. But I think the ones that are lesser known are going to be the 2 forms of magnesium that are in it. So remember, we talked about magnesium with the electrolytes, and we go, well, wait a second. I thought that you said that magnesium was really good for like energy and fighting fatigue. And why would we then put that in a sleep aid? So if you remember what I talked about, when you combine or you compound a mineral with a carrying agent, it targets different cells in the body, similar to when you put magnesium with, you say, oxygen or citric acid, it's going to target the belly, which is why you take it when you have a stomach ache and need to go to the bathroom. When you combine magnesium with malic acid or tauric acid, it promotes fatigue fighting and muscle contraction and neuromuscular function. When you combine it with, it's magnesium glycinate and threonate are the 2 kinds that are in the rest and recovery product. It actually promotes a calming effect, both in the neurochemistry in the brain and in the skeletal tissues. So if you go to sleep at night, you get that kind of like twitching, or you roll over a lot, things like that. They might call it restless leg syndrome. You actually take magnesium glycinate or threonate to target those very specific cells in the body. So the magnesium will actually calm the neurochemistry in the brain and calms the skeletal muscles, so that you kind of really let your body lay there and not toss, turn, twitch. And then there's 2 other ingredients in it, GABA and 5-HTP. And people go, ooh, those sound kind of creepy. Not creepy at all. 5-HTP, they're both amino acids. 5-HTP is hydroxytryptophan. And at this point, your audience may be going, tryptophan, hold on a second, I've heard of that before, right? That's the amino acid that's in turkey that makes us all lay around like big old loafs on the couch after we have Thanksgiving dinner. It calms the chemistry in the brain so that everything goes ooh and slows down. And then GABA is another amino acid. It's GABA aminobutyric acid. Sounds creepy and fancy. They produce a natural serotonin boost in the brain. Serotonin is the calming neurotransmitter. It actually calms everything down and makes us get a little sleepy. So when you combine the GABA, the 5-HTP, to calm the neurochemistry, produce serotonin, and then the 2 forms of magnesium to calm the neurochemistry further and then calm the skeletal muscle, and then the zinc and the B6, it is a magical experience that doesn't knock you out like Benadryl or ZQuil or some of the other like Xanax, some of the prescriptive medications. It's not going to knock you out, right? Because it doesn't bind with receptors that shut things down. It promotes a natural chemistry in your body that already exists with just a little help, so that you actually naturally fall asleep, stay asleep, and you don't get the twitching in the body, that your body recovers and your muscles actually can build and recover overnight. I will answer a question that I know is going to come up from somebody that says, well, why didn't you put melatonin in it? Because melatonin is in every sleep aid out there. And I'll explain to you why. So melatonin binds with the receptors that make you fall asleep. It actually binds with the receptor that causes insomnia. And so it actually produces sleep. So it actually kind of makes you fall asleep. The problem is that you need a sufficient dose of melatonin to do that in order for it to be effective. For most people, that's 3 to 5 milligrams. The problem is, once you go over to the dark side of about 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams, it actually stimulates the brain activity, which is why most people get really bad, vivid dreams when they take melatonin, or they wake up multiple times in the night wildly groggy that they feel like they're awake but asleep. And so the other problem is that melatonin it creates a dependency, both chemically and psychologically or somatically. So you actually develop a chemical dependence on the melatonin, because if you stop taking it, it causes insomnia because of how it blocks that receptor in the brain.
Hmm.
So I intentionally left melatonin out of my minimally effective dose approach, because somebody who needs 2 or 3 milligrams of melatonin for that extra effect, and I do have a few of my clients that I recommend that too, that you can always add it in, but if you put it in there, you can't take it out for the people that don't need it. There's a
Mhm.
few other things out there like lemon balm, chamomile, ashwagandha, that are some herbal ingredients that you can put into it as well. I left those out because, quite frankly, there's some people that feel like a lot of that Chinese herbal medicine stuff is hokey pokey and they don't believe in it. I personally think that those products are actually pretty good. Inositol is another one. It's, again, everyday products for everyday people. I found that everyday people don't look for those products. When I asked my questions and I did my research, these 6 ingredients work so well together that I left everything else out there. You can always add it in there if it's something you feel gives you a more therapeutic effect. It's probably the product that when people take it after about a week, they reach out to me and go, "Oh my God, I never realized how badly I needed TrueRest," which is where the name came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can remember, I mean, I was not sleeping well for a long period of time
Mhm.
and being really frustrated and up, or I could fall asleep, but I would wake up at like 3 and then I couldn't stay asleep. And I sleep really, really well these days. Question, and hate to put you on the spot with this one, but listening to what you were saying, would you say that this True Rest product is okay for teens or kids?
Yeah, so I will admit that I have tried all of these products on my kids while they were kids. My kids are now, 21 and 23 and 27. But so I have actually I've used it on my own teenagers. GABA is very well documented for use in kids over 12. HTP is a natural food-based amino acid in smaller doses that you can definitely give to kids. Magnesium. So all of the ingredients are very well documented in clinical research to be effective for teenagers, so 12 and up. Below 12, I would definitely ask for a doctor's opinion on that. Most doctors are not going to like supplements. They like medications or nothing. But then
Hmm.
again, those are the doctors that tell you to give your kids Gatorade. So we're not going to go on that topic. But, I
Whole
definitely,
nother conversation.
well documented in kids over 12. I would definitely cut the dose down based on their weight. So again, the dosage on TrueRest is 3 capsules for an adult. I would start off with 1 capsule with a kid, go for a full week and see, and you gotta be subjective with how they feel. If you know anything about how to manage preteens and teens, always go on what they say. Let it be their idea. You can up it to 2. I would not go for more than 3 capsules for a young adult, 12 to 16 years old.
Awesome. I'm so glad we had time to get to all 4 products. And tell everybody where they can get these products. And then I'm going to ask you one more thing.
Sure, yeah. So you can order them a couple different ways. One is if you go to the website, truviditylabs.com, all of the products are out there. There's also all the products except for TrueThermo are available on Amazon. So you can get them on Amazon as well. I will tell you, if you go to the website, truviditylabs.com, and you use the code Rachel10, you get 10% off as one of your followers. So that you can't use on Amazon. So there's one benefit of ordering it through the website.
Awesome. And I definitely, I'm so happy with the products and I'm real picky about what I'll use. And so I'm really thrilled to have Truvidity as our sponsor, actually our first sponsor of the podcast as well. So thanks for that. And before we wrap up, I also want to just ask you, Debbie, about what you do with sports psychology, because I know that that is something that you're also really passionate about, and what you do, and maybe somebody that might want to work with you, how you can
Sure.
help them.
Yeah, so when I did my PhD, it's actually, so they shifted the degree from sports psychology exclusively to performance psychology, because they find that the use of psychological factors to promote performance outcomes can be used across a lot of different people. So my specific research that I did when I did my doctorate was actually in the psychological prediction of dietary behaviors and mindfulness on obesity. And so my expertise is in, the psychology of eating, the psychology of goal performance, and how it relates to wellness. So in my practice, I pretty much focus on everyday people, not really athletes, in helping people guide their own mental focus to achieve health and wellness outcomes. Most of my clients have pretty significant health issues, both mental health and physical health. So everything from Hashimoto's and PCOS and Crohn's and all sort of colitis on the kind of physical side to people who are morbidly obese and really just physically can't get up and exercise, to folks with really bad impulse disorders, ADD, alcoholism, and developing mindful techniques for eating and drinking, and food disorders like anorexia, bulimia, and food addiction that lead to obesity. So I love to help people. My philosophy is to teach people the principles that then allow them to do things for themselves. I'm not a psychotherapist. I really just try to help people understand the behaviors that lead to the outcomes that they get and how to change those behaviors for better outcomes.
I love it. And from a lot of the research and studies that I've done in my breathwork training, there's so many interesting psychological attachments to eating disorders and addictions that we don't always realize. We think it's just the behavior that's causing the addiction. We think it's the behavior that's causing the problems, if you will. There's a lot of things that are within our subconscious,
Yeah.
past experiences, things that we don't even necessarily always realize because the brain is meant to protect us. That something happened when you were a kid, something happened when you were even an adult, that you're like, holy cow, cannot even process this right now. I'm gonna go back, gonna put that behind me and just go back to playing Barbies or go dive back into work. I've thought of some people like, they lose a spouse, they lose someone important in their life, and they just dive into their work to try to cope. And that kind of stuff that's still stuck in the subconscious can show up in these
Sure.
addictive behaviors and these
Yeah.
problems that people have with food. I mean, I've been through a lot of it, and I still have things that I'm working through with people around me and my own self with. Just food is hard because we reward ourselves with food, we soothe ourselves with food, we punish ourselves with food sometimes. And same thing with alcohol and drugs, that there's a lot there that sounds like Debbie could be helpful with.
Would love to. Yeah. And I think, you know what, to your point, when, anybody that has either worked with a personal trainer, nutritional coach over the years, and there's just so much that you can tell someone what to do. At some point, they have to bring themselves to the table to follow the advice. And it's fascinating to me that when we know that eating a certain way and not moving our body over years leads to the degradation of the human body, the vessel, people still don't make good choices. And so really kind of peeling back the onion layers of the why behind that is important, and shedding light on it for people so that they can prioritize their health above all else. Because listen, without health, you have nothing. You really don't.
Yeah. And
So yeah,
in America especially, there's the most availability of, I mean, millions and millions of diet books and YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff that you can pay for or get for free. And yet our obesity, the level of obesity in the United States is just
it's the greatest epidemic.
staggering.
It is the greatest epidemic. And when you connect how the mind works cognitively with the level of obesity, the concern that I have is that our young population are now approaching, more than 30% of children are obese before they even reach adulthood. And the likelihood of them becoming not obese in adulthood, once they are obese as children, is very, very low. And when you connect to the fact that the mind doesn't function as well, and so the theories of creativity, innovation, and persistence and resilience are all connected to that, we are predicting an American society in the future that lacks all of that. And it's scary to me. It is, in my opinion, the greatest epidemic that we have to face beyond most of the things that we focus on, quite frankly, as a society.
Yeah, and it's ancestral as well. Like children learn from what their parents are doing. So I definitely urge you, if it's running in your family and it's something that you just can't figure out, it doesn't mean that you're broken or bad. It just means that there's some stuff that there's a perspective that you haven't seen before about your behavior. That's the way I see it.
You know, and Rachel, I think the other thing to mention out there is that I think a lot of people who come to me with really well-intentioned beliefs because it's what's been ingrained in us as a society by big agra, big pharma. I mean, I'll throw it out there to most parents don't realize that 50% of what they put on their kids' plates and in their mouths is actually destroying their health. And that's not because they don't care. I think that most parents think that they're making really good educated choices because they pay attention to what they're being told. And we need to disrupt all of that because it is destroying the future of our country and our society.
Mic drop. On that note, Debbie, Dr. Rosen, I am so grateful for you giving me your time today and bringing so much wisdom and just badassery as an intelligent woman and business owner and knowledgeable individual who actually cares. So really, really so excited about the fact that you came today. And in terms of the performance psychology, is there another way that people would be able to contact you for that aside from going to Truvidity
Sure.
Labs?
Yeah, you can always reach me through TrueVidityLabs.com, but also Truvidity.com is the kind of the coaching side of things. And if anybody wants to reach out through that, be happy to connect with anyone that needs my help.
Awesome. Thanks again, Debbie. And I'm just excited about whatever the next thing you're working on behind the scenes, because I'm pretty sure there's another product coming from Truvidity eventually.
Never know. Thanks, Rachel, so much.
Awesome.